From Shem to Eber to Abraham. I provided an old earth perspective for the origins of Afro-Asiatics and Proto-Semites. Now I'm going to provide a young earth perspective for the origins of Afro-Asiatics and Semites. I believe it is good to first understand academically the origins of Afro-Asiatic Semites. Now we can harmonize what we learned with scriptures. Remember, our goal is to discover who are the ancestors of Israel. By knowing the ancestors of Israel, this can help us figure out the genotype and phenotype of the ancient Israelites. Furthermore, this can help us understand who the descendants of the Israelites are today. One of the most important things to remember is this: the Israelites are Afro-Asiatic Semites, and the Israelites follow their lineage paternally. And just here's a visualization to the right hand side of the screen of the lineage of Israel, and to the left is the distribution of the Afro-Asiatic languages, and Semitic is seen in both Africa and the Middle East, the largest of the Afro-Asiatic languages. Why DNA chromosomes will be important to us again, as well as other DNA methods. But this is why I titled the video From Shem to Eber to Abraham. These three men are extremely important to the ancestry of Israel and even other Semitic populations. They are the key to understanding the genetics of Semites. But before we dive into Shem, Eber, and Abraham, let's quickly cover the young earth perspective when it comes to creation. For more information on young earth creationism, I advise that you look at my playlist that actually covers young earth creationism. It's right here. All you have to do is click, and I have 45 videos that cover young earth creationism. You have to do this on your own time, so consider this to be homework, but good homework when it comes to understanding young earth creationism. 45 videos from my playlist of the Hebrew of Israel that covers young earth creationism if you want to understand the various aspects when it comes to creationists who believe in this form of creation. I have the same thing for a old earth as well. 8 good videos that can explain that the earth can also be old. But of course, for today, we're dealing with young earth creationism. But before we get too deep into the video, first I want to tell you guys about my social media platforms. So I have a Clubhouse account, and we can actually talk to one another on it. I also host Clubhouse rooms every now and then where I might talk about history and genetics of the Middle East and Africa. I have a Twitter page, a Facebook account, and a Facebook page, as well as a Instagram, all titled The Hebrew of Israel. And what I typically do on these platforms is post upcoming videos as well as slides for my presentations. And so just be on the lookout for all of that on my social media platforms. And if you want to support me financially for the channel, you can look at my Patreon as well as my PayPal and my GoFundMe. And with all of that out of the way, let's begin with the video. Where was Eden, and what did Adam and Eve look like? Genesis chapter 1 covers creationism. If you take a literal approach to the scriptures, the Most High created the earth in 6 days, and he rested on the seventh. And then Genesis chapter 2 covers the Garden of Eden. Now, where was the Garden of Eden? Genesis chapter 2, verse 8 through 14 says, "The Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. Now a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it parted and became four river heads. The name of the first is Pishon. It is the one which skirts the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. Bdellium and oxenstone are there. The name of the second river is Gihon. It is the one which goes around the whole land of Cush. The name of the third river is Hiddekel. It is the one which goes towards the east of Assyria. The fourth river is the Euphrates. Now, as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, I believe when it came to the world before the flood, from a young Earth perspective, would have been more like Pangea, entire continent, one continent for the whole planet. And the four rivers would be basically the Nile River, the Red Sea, and the, of course, Euphrates and Tigris River. And the Garden of Eden itself would be Israel. So here's a closer image. Here's a wide image, and I'll get a bit closer on the next one. So here it is. Basically, when it comes to the land of Nod, because of course Nod is mentioned, the land of Nod would have been, unironically, the land of Babylon, or in that territory that will become future Babylon. And as you can see, Eden would have been in the area of the Levant or Israel. And then you have the various rivers coming from Africa and the Middle East, filtering the land. And basically, Eden would be Africa. Eden, the land, would be Africa. But of course, the garden was eastward of Eden. And so in this case, this would be Israel, the land of Israel. And so this is the way I sort of envision uh, the land of Eden and the garden of Eden. Eden, Africa, the garden is Israel, which is east of Africa. So, with that being said, what did Adam and Eve look like? Adam was created from the dust of the ground. This is mentioned in Genesis chapter 2, verse 4 through 7. And it says, "But a mist went up from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being." In the Hebrew, that word is Adamah. Adamah. And Adamah has various meanings. The largest meaning is land, next, earth, soil, land, earth, soil, nation, property, dust. But for the most part, it is earth and arable ground. So it's dealing with the surface of the world. Adam literally means red, and there is an etymological connection between Adam and Adamah. Adamah designating red clay or red ground in a non-theological context. The Hebrew word Adamah means land, ground, or soil. The word Adamah could then be more literally translated red ground, and the name Adam could be said to mean red man or man from the red dirt. This was from gotquestions.com. What is the meaning of the Hebrew word Adamah? And ground, red ground, earth, for a meaning of Adamah from NOBSE Study Bible, named List Readings, red ground. This is from Abram Publications. And so Here is an image of red dirt or the red ground. And here is an image of the red ground when it's applied to people with lighter skin complexions. You can see a obvious difference between someone who is extremely light skinned versus someone who is or the color of red ground. And down here you can actually see red ground that is wet, and it's even a slightly darker color. And again, here are people next to red ground. We can probably rule out that Adam would have been extremely light skinned. He would have likely been a reddish brown complexion. And here are more people with red clay on their faces. I would say when it comes to Adam, that he would look more like this man who perfectly fits the description of red ground or red clay. As you can see, his skin tone is a perfect match. When it comes to these women as well, their skin tone matches that of the ground or the dirt, red ground, or just regular brown dirt versus the other people that we saw. But with that being said, what does science have to say about Adam when it came to his phenotype? I am protected under the copyright law of Title 17 USC Section 107 for the clip that I'm about to play. And I am protected under the Fair Use Act. Again, I am protected under the Fair Use Act, and I'm using this video for teaching purposes and for research. So, putting that out there.
Jefferson may look European, but his Y chromosome tells a different story. It shows that what we look like may not really tell us where we come from. And it raises a question mark over the traditional image of Adam. For centuries, artists have depicted him like this, like a European. For many of us, this is Adam. Michelangelo's famous painting in the Vatican Sistine Chapel. He looks like a beautiful Italian who spends a lot of time in the gym. Did the common ancestor of all men really look like this? The story of Jefferson suggests he could have looked very different. Finally, Wells comes face to face with the man he's been searching for. A new portrait of the common ancestor of every man today. Adam. Without a skull, we can't know for sure what Adam looked like. But a combination of genetic evidence, vendors' forensic skills, and cutting-edge computer software suggests he looked something like this. Thousands of years after the Bible, and hundreds of years after Michelangelo, we have a whole new face for Adam.
I like the expression. He's got a very forceful look. He's intent on something, maybe taking over the world. You begin to get perhaps an insight into why these guys won out and why this guy's our ancestor.
So, from a scientific standpoint, Adam would have been dark skinned, dark haired, and dark eyed, specifically like a dark brown, similar to the dirt, the ground. And so, therefore, Adam's description is very similar to that of the scriptures when it comes to a scientific standpoint, if he's coming from a dark substance of the earth, like a reddish brown clay. But furthermore, it will even seem like, from a scientific standpoint, that Adam would have looked somewhat African, which is fairly interesting. With that being said, what do Christian scientists have to say about Adam and Eve when it came to their phenotype and skin tone? Again, copyright disclaimer. I am protected under the Fair Use Act, and this is for teaching purposes for the next video clip that I'm about to share. Again, copyright disclaimer. I am protected under the fair use, and this is for teaching and research purposes.
I hear this one a lot. How can there be so many races in the world if we are all descendants of Adam and Eve? Well, check this out. First off, let's talk about the word race. Sometimes when people use the word, they mean supposed races of people who have evolved at different times, rates, and in different locations. That's not true. Of course, the word race is also a term we use to distinguish between groups with different physical traits, namely skin color. But are there really different races? Take a gander at Acts 17:26, where it is written that God, from one man, made every nation of men. It's clear then that the Bible teaches that there is one race, the human race. The Bible is also clear that all people on the earth are descendants of Adam and Eve who were created by God. Check Genesis 1:26 through 28. Easy enough. God created two people in his image, male and female, and told them to increase in number. So, Adam and Eve are mom and dad of the human race. Then, their children had children, and those children had children, and so on and so forth for many generations until, according to Genesis 6:9, the world's population was reduced to 8 people who were protected inside an ark during a global flood. And those 8 people later walked off the ark, and according to Genesis 9:19, from them came the people who were scattered over the earth. Oh, wait a second. What do I mean scattered? Well, jump over to Genesis 11 and let's talk about an event known as the Tower of Babel. Basically, because of the sinful actions of the descendants of Noah, the Lord confused their language and scattered them from there over all the earth. That's pretty clear and concise. Okay, so we've got lots of people who were descendants of the 8 folks who came off the ark, and now they have been scattered all over the earth. That explains that we are still one race and that different groups of people ended up in different locations. But how do we get a bunch of different colored people if we are all one race? Well, follow along. This, of course, is a simplified explanation, but the basic principles are true. We all have a pigment in our bodies called melanin, which, depending on different variables, produces different shades of the one main skin color we all possess. Several genes control the amount of melanin produced and thus the variability in the skin shade. In fact, it's easy for one couple to produce a wide range of skin shade variability in just one generation, as we'll see in just a moment. Time for a quick genetics lesson. DNA is the molecule of heredity that is passed from parents to children. A child inherits 23 chromosomes from each parent. Each chromosome pair contains hundreds of genes, which regulate the physical development of the child. However, to illustrate basic genetic principles pertaining to the topic, we'll just talk about 2 genes, the genes that control the production of melanin. So, let capital A and capital B symbolize versions of the gene that code for large amounts of melanin, while little a and little b code for small amounts. Got it? Easy. Check this out. Take a look at the upper left. Let's say dad contributes capital A, capital B genes, and mom contributes capital A, capital B genes as well. Together they will produce a child with capital A, capital A, capital B, and capital B. This is a kid with a lot of melanin, and thus he will have very dark skin. Easy to see. Here's the bigger point though. Let's say dad contributes capital A, capital B, and mom contributes little a and little b. Well, the child's skin will be middle brown shade, the combination of capital A, little a, and capital B, little b, which by the way represents a majority of the world's population. Not only that, but if each parent is capital A, little a, capital B, little b, the combinations that could be produced in their children could result in a very wide range of skin shades in just one generation. So, since Adam and Eve were the first people ever, it makes sense to conclude that God placed in them a combination of genes that could produce all different shades of skin we see. Those same combinations would be present in Noah and the 7 other people who boarded the ark. And because God dispersed people at the Tower of Babel, he dispersed the population, thereby isolating gene pools in the different people groups. Over time, different cultures formed in different locations with certain features like skin shade becoming predominant. And here we are today. And since we all go back to Noah and his family, it makes sense that we are all different shades of brown. One race, multiple people groups, just like the Bible teaches. Simplified for sure, but enough said.
So, from a scriptural perspective, a Christian scientific perspective, and even a secular scientific perspective, it would seem that early man or Adam and Eve would have been a people group with dark skin, dark hair, and dark eyes. Specifically, they would have been perhaps brown, a reddish brown color. And I do agree that it would make a lot of sense for Adam and Eve to basically be medium brown or middle brown in skin tone, capital A, lowercase a, capital B, lowercase b. This is, like as he said, the skin tone that's typical among most humans. Even today, most humans are medium brown, and it would make sense that Adam and Eve would have carried genes for dark skin, and later light skin. But of course, everyone starting off with a more darker complexion and then getting lighter due to later genetic mutations, regions, and things of that nature. So I would say Adam and Eve, like this man, you can see on the left hand side, and this woman, you can see on the right hand side with dark brown red clay in the background. They would have been a brown, reddish brown complexion. And for our next episode, Shem and Eber in the future promised land. And now we conclude with this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video. And please leave a comment for any questions covering this video and the series as a whole. Thank you and have a great day.